The culture was very different in South America because there are dogs everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. And the streets definitely weren't as clean as some places. So it was kind of scary to be in a place where no one spoke English, everyone spoke Spanish, and I didn't know where I was. In the MDC, we could leave on P days and go to the temple there in Lima and go to a couple other stores that they had around there. And so we would get on the bus and it was really crowded and hot, and at first it kind of makes you nervous, but as a missionary, I think that, well, we're very blessed and very protected, and so it made me feel kind of invincible. But that definitely helped, remembering I'm a missionary and being a good example to those around you. I think it helped the people down there respect you more, and so you were in less danger than if you were just a tourist, you know. But definitely that was probably the biggest culture shock is the environment. I mean, I'm from New Hampshire and it's very quiet, lots of trees. The only animals in the street are like deer or squirrels or something. So it was very different, but I learned to love it a lot. When you walk into a house in Ecuador, you always have to kind of excuse yourself in order to pass through the doorway. And so we'd always say permiso when you walk into a house, which you don't do in the United States, but down there it's very polite to do. Something that I wasn't prepared for was that everyone gives kisses on the cheek to each other when they greet. And so you don't have to like kiss each other on the cheek, but you just kind of touch cheeks and kind of make a little kissy noise. And sometimes the people are sweaty and sometimes you're sweaty, and so it's kind of gross, but you know, you do it because that's their culture. And except missionaries, sister missionaries cannot give a kiss on the cheek to a male, obviously. And so that was kind of scary at first, because in my first area, we were teaching this family and their son came into the room and he came down to like give me a kiss on the cheek, and my companion's like, "What?" She like screamed. And I was like, "No, aquí nomás, like just shake my hand." And so you have to be prepared for that as a missionary, because many men will try to give you a kiss on the cheek and they'll say it's rude that you don't give them a kiss on the cheek because that's their culture. But you just have to say, no, as missionaries, we just shake people's hands, and then you can kiss the women on the cheek and it's fine. But that was definitely something I was not prepared for as a missionary. So remember that, kiss on the cheek to girls, not to guys. They always eat with a spoon, and so you can eat with your fingers. They taught me you would just eat the meat in your left hand, and you would help scoop up the rice into your spoon and just eat what you want. And so that was kind of funny. Got to eat with my hands. A lot of the time they expect you to share with them also. Like I had a companion all my companions that spoke Spanish as their first language were from Chile or Guatemala. And if you bought something and they didn't buy it, they kind of expected you to share with them. So I think in our culture, we're a little bit more selfish. I mean, we're selfish a little bit. More like, I worked for what I got, and so it's mine. And you can do whatever you want with your own money or something. And so I bought a treat, and my companion's just kind of looking at me like, aren't you going to share? And I'm like, you have your own money, like buy your own. But I realized, you know what? No, like that's not the way Jesus Christ would live. I mean, he would share with everyone. So I had to learn that. I had to learn to be charitable, because that's how they are down there. They just share everything. What's mine is yours. Mi casa es su casa. Like they literally live that in every way of their lives. So about the culture, it's very different being on the coast and in the mountains. On the coast, the people are pretty crazy, pretty open. They just love everyone. Like they get to know you and then you're instantly friends. And they give everything they have. I mean, I remember this one family, they didn't have very much money at all. And they made this delicious dinner that they were going to eat. And we showed up on their door just to say hi and see if one of them could accompany us to visit their neighbor. And they said, "Oh, come in, sisters," and they gave us their dinner, and then they made themselves just a rice with a fried egg on it. And I felt so bad. I was like, "This is your food, and you have hardly any money." But they were just so loving, and I loved that about them, is that they are so humble and so charitable. And they can be crazy, but they just give everything they have. In the mountains, the people are definitely more reserved and a little bit, just more reserved. It rains a lot there, and so, they kind of keep to themselves in their house and don't always have parties outside like they do on the coast. But it's funny because on the coast, people hardly wear clothes. So it was, they wear clothes, but but they wear minimal clothing. And so, at first you kind of have to be aware of that, and women will feed their babies any time of the day, anywhere they want. So for the elders, they're kind of like, "Oh, what do we look at?" So that was definitely different. There are dogs everywhere. If people are driving cars, they will honk if they're saying hi. If they're in a taxi and they have room in the taxi, they'll honk if there's not room in the taxi. They'll honk if you're walking. They'll honk if they're crossing an intersection. They'll honk if they're turning right. Like, they just honk at anything they want to. And so that was kind of exciting. Like, everyone's just honking for nothing. I'm like, what's going on? They have a lot of traditions down there. A lot of people are Catholic. And so mostly Easter traditions. They, like on Palm Sunday, everyone's out selling palm leaves. And
some of the cool facts about Ecuador, one of my favorite things is the history that goes along with it. There's a people that are known as the Otavalan Indians that live in Ecuador. They're really the closest thing that I've ever seen as far as an indigenous group goes, and they would have their ceremonial clothing that they would wear even to church. They would just wear white slacks, a white shirt. Sometimes they'd wear a hat, which is part of their ceremonial clothing, and it was just part of their tradition and culture. And that was a really neat experience to see what types of things they did as members of the church, but also things that they did to keep in line with their family traditions, such as long braids. Even the men would wear their hair down, and they weren't supposed to cut it. It was part of their tradition to keep it long and braided. So that was interesting. Definitely an eye-opening experience when I arrived to an area called Iluman and saw mostly just pure people that looked like Indians, and that was a really neat experience to learn about them and some of the things that that they practiced and how they became members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. One of the things that I love about Spanish culture in particular is how the people interact with you on a daily basis. Most of the people are just always warm and loving, very welcoming. I remember a specific area in my mission in the coast. It was an area called Esmeraldas, and I remember almost every house that we went to, some of the people would let us in, and maybe they didn't have a lot of interest in our message, but they definitely had an interest in sharing their food with us. And that was awesome to be able to learn from them, their culture, and obviously share the great food that they would make. South American food is some of the best that exists in the world. Most people just think it's rice and beans, which that is a lot of what it is in South America, but it is some of the best rice and beans that exists in the world. And especially the rice. I don't know what it was or what they put in it, but the rice just tasted completely different than any other rice I'd ever tasted. And even though I ate rice every single day on my mission, I learned to love it, and it filled me. So that was the most important. The craziest food that I ate was probably cow tongue. That was definitely a unique experience, and to add to that, the people didn't tell me what I was eating beforehand, so definitely came as a shock to me when I learned that it was cow tongue. Another small story was we were eating food with a family of members, and out of their refrigerator they pulled out a lamb's head and put it on the kitchen table. And although I didn't try the lamb, it definitely was intimidating to look at it as I was eating the other foods that they had prepared, not knowing exactly what the meat was that I was trying that day.
Ecuadorian culture and lifestyle, from what I saw on my mission, for example, the demographic in Ecuador, they they practice the Catholic religion very heavily. So a lot of the families there are just very, very Catholic. Some things that will entail is that they will be family prone. So everybody that is part of the Catholic religion will be very close knit together. So when I would go on my mission and I would just kind of talk about the LDS religion with them, they would not really know what it was, but once I would kind of show the message to someone, it would spread very quickly to the rest of the family because they are so tight-knit in a certain religion that they would kind of just tell everybody else and everybody else would eventually know. So that was both really helpful. Something else about Ecuador culture is that they're very into soccer there, especially within the last couple of years because Ecuador has been in the World Cup. So that was a really, really cool experience. They really favor two country teams as well called Emelec and Barcelona. So on game days when Emelec is playing Barcelona or vice versa, everybody just shuts down their home, and it's very hard to talk to people because especially just families, they just watch the games together and they just kind of no interruptions. It's like a huge game, you know, when rivals of the same country kind of play each other. So those are kind of interesting things as well. Another culture thing about Ecuador is that I would just kind of talk about, recommend to someone would just be to be open with everybody because everybody in Ecuador is really, really friendly. So if you just kind of like, hey, what's your name? They'll immediately say, hey, what's your name? Everybody in Ecuador will say, buenos dias, buenas noches. So good morning, good night, like good afternoon. Everybody always says hi. That's the thing I really enjoyed about my mission. Everybody always said hi, no matter if they're a member of the church or not. Everybody's just really nice there. And so when I came back to the United States, I kind of had this custom of saying good morning, like good afternoon, how are you? Like good morning, good afternoon. And I still do that, but I mean, nobody ever says it back to me. So it's kind of funny that way. But in Ecuador, they're always very cordial, and that's what I appreciate about the country there. And very nice. I mean, on my mission, sometimes there was one time when a volcano erupted, and I was walking with my companion, and I just saw that there was like white things falling on my jacket. And I just kind of said, like, what is that? Like, is this snow? Is it snowing in Ecuador? That's kind of weird. And so I just kind of brushed it off the first time. And then after like 15 minutes, it came back and more stuff came. And I was like, what is that? What is falling on me? And then I see some people running around with selling the face mask, saying each face mask $5. And I'm saying, why are they selling it for so much? And then we finally realized that it was a volcano that erupted and it was ash. Ash was falling in the city that I was serving in. And if you inhale ash, it's like really bad. So there was actually a family that just like saw us walking. Hey, missionaries, you guys are the elders. Just come in. You have to wait for a while until the ash goes away. And then we found out that it was a volcano, that this ash was happening, and that it was kind of a catastrophic event. So, but again, it's another example of the people in Ecuador that are very friendly, even for people that, I mean, may or may not be of the same religion. They're always willing to take in and just like be very cheerful about it. So I really like that.
It's definitely a different culture. I think the first thing that I noticed about them just in my first week there is in Ecuador, they point with their lips, which is really off-putting the first time you see it. You know, when you're on the street and you see somebody go, hey, look at that over there. So, you know, that kind of freaked my family out when I first got home, and I was still doing it. The people there are awesome. They are so open and so generous. You know, we would have people that would open up their doors and they'd say, hey, come in and eat something. And we'd be like, can we share a message? They'd be like, no, we're Catholic. We don't want to hear your message, but come in and eat something anyway. They were just so hospitable and so open. And I think that was the best thing that I learned about their culture, and the thing that I love the most about the Ecuadorian people is just how generous they were. Generous and open with everything. I mean, you would eat lunch at a member's house that just lived in a little bamboo hut, and they would give you everything they had, and they wouldn't even eat lunch because they were giving it to you, everything that they had. And that was really really humbling. As far as annual festivals go, there's a couple of those that we don't have here. I think most people that have heard about Latin America have heard of Carnival, which is in February. And that is a real party. Most of the time, the missionaries aren't even allowed to leave because it's pretty much 3 days of just people throwing water balloons and mud, and they have big cans of silly string that are this big that they spray each other with. So that's a lot of fun, even if you're just watching it from a window. And New Year's there is a huge deal. It's a lot bigger than Christmas. Christmas is usually just like a nice dinner that you have with your family. Maybe you give away some presents. Then people get really, really excited for New Year's. And in Ecuador, they have one of the funnest New Year's traditions that I've ever heard of. They call them monigotes or quemar el viejo. They're basically just big paper mache like mannequins. And they usually make them from like popular movies like Iron Man, The Avengers, or maybe animated movies like Tangled or Frozen. And they usually spend all the month of December making them. Really, really intricate, really detailed. And then on the night of the 31st, they pack them full of explosives, and right as the clock hits 12, they blow them up, which is really fun to watch. Like I said, even if you're just watching from a window, because we weren't allowed to go outside, but literally every single house has at least one monigote out in the street in front of it, just blowing up right at 12 o'clock midnight. And that's something that was really new for me the first time I saw it. In my first area, I was, like I said, in a beach town, and that was right during the New Year's. And it's really traditional in Ecuador to go to the beach whenever there's a vacation. So it just filled up with tourists and with people that were coming from Guayaquil and all over Ecuador. And on New Year's, it was just insane. There were monigotes that were 3 stories high. They were just burning out in the middle of the street. So that was a lot of fun, and it definitely caught me by surprise the first time. People in Ecuador are really poor. I mentioned there are some rich areas, especially in our part of Guayaquil. There are some really nice areas that frankly look just like a neighborhood in the United States. But once you get outside of Guayaquil, once you get into the slums, there's a lot of really, really poor people, a lot of poverty. But I mean, they're people just like us, and they have the same values and the same wants that we do. They just want their family to be happy. They want their family to be provided for. I think as far as etiquette goes, something that kind of caught me by surprise, and this might go for all of Latin America, they're a lot more touchy. If you come into a room, you pretty much have to shake everyone's hand, and when you leave, you have to shake everyone's hand. And that happens always if you're just meeting somebody for the first time, or if you're old friends. If you're coming to a group of people, shake everybody's hands in the groups, and then when you leave, do the same thing. That was something that kind of caught me by surprise. So another interesting thing about Ecuador, probably again similar to most of the rest of South America, most of the people are Catholic, but I would say maybe 1% actually go to church. Most people just say they're Catholic, say they believe in the Bible, say they believe in Jesus Christ, but they never actually go. So it's good because they have a strong faith, a strong tradition in Christianity, but they don't really have any beliefs about what that means. Like if you tell them something about Christ, like, yeah, he has a body of flesh and blood, most of the time they'll just be like, oh yeah, that's great. Because they don't really know. But they do have a lot of faith in Christ, a lot of belief in God. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the church has been so successful there. Because they're a really faithful people. They have a lot of faith in God. And most of them are Catholics. There are a few Jehovah's Witnesses there that you'll run into every once in a while. A few evangelists that, have their drums and their electric guitars in their churches that are really easy to hear. You'll definitely see a lot of those. But most of the people are just quiet. Most of the people just have, good family values. They believe in the Bible. They believe in a lot of the same things that we do. Just they sometimes have a different way of expressing it.